Performance is pretending to be something that you're not. Embodiment is practicing becoming what you already are. And what you already are is who you want to be in your mind, because you would not have that vision if you could not be that person. Good morning. Good morning. Happy Thursday. How are we doing, guys? Welcome back to the Sage Sorority. I'm your host, Chantel. So glad you guys are here. Before we get into today's episode, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the pod, guys. Leave us a comment and a review. Share the pod with a friend who you think might need to hear it. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Word of mouth is genuinely how podcasts grow, and every single share means the world to me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Of course, we have to get out a little bit of housekeeping right at the top. Also, I want to give a quick shout out because the Sage Sorority Presents The Gathering on Thursday, March 5th at 6 p.m. is almost sold out, which is so exciting. I'm really looking forward to hang out with everyone offline, IRL. It is going to be a room full of incredible women, great wine, amazing conversation, and have the conversations that we need to be having. And truthfully, this is really just the beginning. This is our inaugural event, but I'm really hoping that this is one of several events that I look to host in 2026. So if you missed out this time, stay close, subscribe, keep listening to the pod, follow me on Insta at The Sage Sorority and at Chantel Russo, because I'm very much looking forward to hanging out with you guys more offline this year. So watch this space. Okay, so today's episode, as you can tell by the title, we need to stop waiting because you are already her. So a few weeks ago, I'm sure I mentioned it on the pod because I tell you guys everything and we talk every week. So a few weeks ago, I'm sure I mentioned I was at a workshop hosted by Stephanie Sword Williams. She's the author of the very popular book from several years ago called Fuck Being Humble. And her latest book, Career Come Down, she's basically on a book tour essentially. And it was like book tour / workshop. It was really good. And it was the first time that I had ever seen her live, but I've seen clips of her online. She's a very dynamic speaker, really friendly, really funny, which is always nice when you're delivering serious content. And during her Q&A, at the very end, I had asked her a question that had been sitting with me for quite some time. It's rare that, or I shouldn't say it's rare, but it's not common that you really get to be in close proximity to published authors, paid for speakers. You're talking about 4-figure deals, 5-figure deals, and to be able to ask them what you need. And sometimes you pay your way into spaces like buying a ticket to a workshop or buying a ticket to an event to get closer to someone in hopes that you can pick their brain for 5 minutes. And I highly recommend, especially if the person that you admire is very busy. Anyways, I just asked her, what practical advice would you give someone who wants to get paid to speak and ideally wants to write a book, and ideally a book with some sort of serious advance, right? And she just looked at me and said, you need to speak and you need to write. You basically need to act like someone who wants to get paid to speak and act like someone who wants to get paid to write. That is it. That is the answer. And it's so funny because I literally knew that that's what she was going to say. I laughed because it is so annoyingly simple and we rather make it hard. Cue Lauryn Hill. But I did sit with it and I thought she's right, and more than that, I've also been doing these things for years. I've been a blogger. I've been a content creator. I've been a fashion influencer. I've been a writer. I've been a public voice on the internet for a decade. So why am I still waiting for permission? Like, why am I asking her a question that I know in my gut I already know the answer to? And why am I still getting tongue-tied when people maybe ask me what I do, or they're looking for the 5-second pitch, the 10-second story? And that's really what today's episode is about, because I know that fake it till you make it can sometimes have a really bad rap. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But the version of yourself, whatever version that is, right? Doesn't have to be work, doesn't have to be physical, can be emotional, whatever, right? The version of yourself that you keep putting off, the woman that you are quote unquote waiting to embody, waiting to become, and the uncomfortable truth that that woman is not just going to run up on you one day and be like, okay, let's switch places. You have to become her because you already are her because you have that vision. So let's talk about it. So a lot of us are living in a kind of purgatory, emotional purgatory, or better yet, a waiting room. We are waiting to be thinner. We are waiting to be snatched. We are waiting to book the trip. We are waiting to feel more confident before we put ourselves forward. We are waiting to be further along. We are waiting to be better read. It's a constant state of waiting. We're waiting for more money because as long as you're waiting and you've deemed that a viable reason, you have a reason to not be seen. As long as you're not quite ready, you can protect yourself. You feel like you're protecting yourself from the risk of actually trying and it not working out. And I've talked about this a few times in many different ways, but the easiest reference is this podcast. I waited to feel comfortable to create a podcast for years, even though it's something I wanted to do. I thought I'd be good at it and I thought I had something to say. And the gag is, I waited for years. And the moment that I hit publish on episode 01, the reset, I wasn't ready. I didn't wake up one day and I was like, okay, I'm ready. You know what I actually was? I was just sick of talking about it. And I didn't want to be someone who talks about things and doesn't do them and doesn't see it through and doesn't follow through. So the readiness never came. The annoyance and the frustration of my own shit came, and that's how it came to be. Like I said earlier, I have been living on the internet for quite some time. I've written words, I've spoken to audiences, I've built communities, and yet I still get tongue-tied when someone asks me about my content. And I still get tongue-tied even in my freelance work because the version of those things I've done, it's such a mashup and it doesn't always feel super official, especially with the move from Toronto to London. I feel like there's a gap because I'm explaining to people here about things that they didn't see and they weren't witness to. And I find that it makes me feel a bit more uncomfortable and almost like it can be easily disregarded. But it does count. And me not taking it seriously enough because the version of those things I've done doesn't feel official enough sometimes. And it feels like it doesn't count, but it does count. And I see this pattern everywhere, especially even in the women around me. And it's not just in careers, it's how they carry themselves in dating, like waiting to feel worthy of the relationship that they actually want to get into it or to move into it, or until they've lost the weight, or until they've fixed that thing, or until they've sorted themselves out. And how women pitch themselves even at work, like underselling, we're overqualified, adding caveats before we just go in for the kill and we go in for the ask. It's in how women describe their own accomplishments, me included, deflecting compliments, shrinking the story, making it sound smaller or like not a big deal. So nobody thinks you're getting too big for your boots. We've all been there. And this is not accidental, right? Like we are socialized and conditioned from a very young age as women to take up less space, especially as a POC and even more so as a Black woman. To be modest, to be palatable, to be nice. We know how much I hate that word. To just not seem like you're doing too much. And deconditioning that, like really deconditioning that, like the real unfucking your brain of that takes time. And I would argue, guys, it takes a lifetime. It is not a switch that you flip. It is not a workout that you do. It's not an outfit that you put on. It's not an age that you hit. It's slow and it's deliberate and it's real rewiring, and it's 1000% worth your time and effort. But ultimately, you have to start somewhere. And the first place to start is noticing where you're still waiting for someone like a fairy godmother to like anoint you when really you need to put that crown on your fucking self. So let's go back to the fake it till you make it thing. I know that a lot of people do not like that saying and they do not like that methodology. And I get it, right? Listen, I don't want any surgeon faking it till they make it, okay? I don't want a pharmacist faking it till they make it. I don't want an Uber driver faking it till they make it. I get it. I know. We've all been told that it's very performative, it's inauthentic, it's a shortcut, you're discrediting yourself, you're discrediting your industry, etc., etc. Side note, I am an executive assistant and I have been for about a decade. I have supported C-suite, I have supported solo entrepreneurs, founders, I've worked in startups, I've worked in creative agencies, I've worked in finance, asset management, hedge fund. I've scattered the land, I would say. My goal now and the work that I have been doing without the title is absolutely a chief of staff. It's a more operative chief of staff as opposed to one that creates and evaluates financial models and has a go-to-market strategy for startups. When I tell you that there's so much discourse, especially on LinkedIn, about that title and how EAs should not call themselves chief of staff, and it ruins the role and you are doing yourself a disservice, you are disqualifying yourself, and there's so much back and forth. So I get why people say, no, you can't just call yourself something, but it's like, what if you have been doing it and that fairy godmother hasn't come and given you the crown to say, yeah, okay. How many of us, especially as women, and might I add, this very opinionated position puff piece on LinkedIn came from a man, but that's a conversation for another day. How many of us that are listening right now have been doing roles that have not been formally acknowledged, projects that we've slayed that have not been formally acknowledged? How many times? How many times over the course of your career? I'm sure you can name many. So that's why on the flip side, I don't buy it. I'm just supposed to sit and wait for someone to anoint me when I can anoint myself, when I know myself and I know the work that I've been doing. But I digress. Let's get back to my original point. I get why people push back on the fake it till you make it, because there's a version of that phrase that really is just pretending to be someone you're not and hoping nobody notices. I get it. But again, I think we've thrown the baby out with the bathwater, because there is another version of it, one that I think of as true embodiment rather than a performance, that I genuinely believe in. And I think that distinction really matters. And ultimately, I think it's helpful. Performance is pretending to be something that you're not. Embodiment is practicing becoming what you already are. And what you already are is who you want to be in your mind, because you would not have that vision if you could not be that person. I really believe that. And if you believe in manifestation and that our thoughts become things and any type of neuroplasticity, we're on the same wavelength. So I'll give you an example. If you have a skill set you've never had the formal opportunity to deploy, like I was saying earlier, say you've always been the person that your friends can come to for advice, but you've never officially coached anyone. Does that mean you can't call yourself a coach? Does that mean you can't charge people for your expertise? Does that mean that you have to wait until someone hires you before the skill counts? What if that's not what you want to do full time? You just want to do it part time? Or what about the soft skills? The emotional intelligence, the way you hold a room, the way you communicate, the way you lead your team, the way you lead your family. None of that comes with a certificate a lot of the times. None of that gets handed to you officially. You don't get a stamp for that. You either step into that role and you own that shit, or you don't. Someone once said, and I'm definitely paraphrasing here, whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right. And I think that is a phenomenal quote to always come back to, not just with the hard stuff, but with the soft skills as well. Because so much of what holds women back, what holds us back, is not our lack of skill or capability. It is truly a lack of mental permission that we give ourselves. Now, obviously, I'm not saying, like I said earlier, hard skills are important. I don't want a surgeon like faking it till you make it or anything like that. And I'm not out here telling people to skip the work. Never that. That totally goes against our ethos here. But for a huge number of things we hold ourselves back from, the vision that we have for ourselves, the women that we are trying to become, the women that we already are in our souls, the gap isn't always in hard skills. And I would reckon a lot of times it's not. It is the belief that we are allowed to claim it for ourselves first and foremost. We don't have to wait for the crowd to jump in. It's not directly tied to this, but it reminds me, it's not a direct quote, but people say Henry Ford alluded to something like this before. And whether or not he actually said it, I think it's a phenomenal saying and quote. So I'm going to say it with you guys. And I might have said it on the pod before. I can't remember. But the idea is basically like, he's like, if I asked people what they wanted, they would have told me that they wanted faster horses, before obviously him refining the car. And I really believe that, because if you always look to others for the proof, the acceptance, and the direction, you won't be able to create that for yourself. You have to claim it first. If you build something for yourself, it will come. The belief will come, but you have to build it, aka claim it first. first. And that's where the embodiment piece comes in, because you don't transform overnight. Nobody wakes up one day as a completely different person. You evolve slowly. Chips make chunks, small decisions, small moments, and small claims that you make about who you are and what you are capable of and where you're going. That's how it works. So the question I want to ask you as you're listening to this is, where in your life are you still playing small? Because here's the thing, playing small when you know better is not a neutral position. You may think it is, but it's not. It's not safe. You're not protecting yourself. You are actually hurting yourself in micro ways, in micro moments. And you are making your own world smaller and boxing yourself in. A huge part of this is language. The words we speak to ourselves become the house that we live in, right? I'm sure you've heard that before. What words are you choosing? And I mean that specifically on a granular level. How do you describe yourself when you are introduced to someone new? How do you speak about your work, your ambitions, your life? What language are you using in your own head about what you're capable of and what you deserve in all aspects of your life? Because a lot of us are living in houses built from languages that we inherited, voices that we inherited, from how we were raised to what was modeled to us, from stories we told ourselves after someone hurt us or we failed at something, or for whatever reason, life did not go the way we planned. And what I want to offer you on top of that is that your 3D, for those of us in the little woo-woo space, your 3D reality, aka your external circumstances, aka your life, might not match your vision yet. And that is okay. That does not mean you adjust the vision. It's normal. The act of becoming is not an instant process. Like I said, you don't wake up as a new bitch. It doesn't work like that. But the language, the posture, we talked about posture and confidence, the identity that you are embodying bit by bit, day by day, that has to come first. You have to start speaking her into existence. And you've probably heard that phrase 100 times. And I'll give it to you 101 times because it matters. Speaking her into existence before she fully arrives, before the 3D matches up. And it's not as a performance, it's as a decision. Practically speaking, that might mean introducing yourself differently at the next event you go to. Maybe it's the gathering on March 5th. No big deal. It might mean updating how you describe your work on your website or on your LinkedIn, or when someone asks you about your life at a dinner party. It might mean catching yourself mid-thought when you're about to add unnecessary qualifiers before the thing that you actually want to say. It might mean, at a minimum, just noticing where you're still hesitant, where you're still waiting. Where in your life are you still kind of sitting in that waiting room holding a ticket, hoping your number gets called? Because this is the thing, guys, about being in that waiting room. No one is going to call your number. You have to just get up and walk through that door yourself. So, although we've discussed the concept, I now want to give you some places in your life where you can actually put this. Because, like I say pretty often, all of this work and stuff, our theory is the classroom, but real life is the test, right? And I always want to give you something to take into that test with you. Firstly, we're not going to dive too much into it. You got to audit your language. Specifically, I want you to think about how you introduce yourself, how you speak about what you do, not just your job title necessarily, but the fuller picture of who you are and what you bring to the table. If someone asked you, so what do you do? What would come out of your mouth? Is it apologetic? Is it overqualified? Are you playing small? Does it sound like you're asking for permission to be taken seriously? Because if it does, that is your starting point. Not necessarily as a rebrand, but just a reframe. Make it tighter, make it stronger. Start practicing a version of your answer that doesn't shrink before it even comes out of your mouth. Secondly, you need to catch yourself with the when I sentences. Maybe this is something for journaling, but sit down and finish the sentence honestly. I'll start calling myself a blank when, and I'll feel ready to blank when, and I'll allow myself to blank when. Write whatever comes up without editing it, because whatever you write after the when is your waiting room. That's the condition you've placed on your own permission. And once you see it written down, if you're being honest with yourself, you can ask yourself, is that condition even real? Is that a real barrier to what you need to do or want to do? Or is it just a story that you've been telling yourself so long? It just feels like your reality and it feels like a fact. And then I would double down on that and say, okay, if it is a real hurdle, how do you break that down? What are the steps you can do today? If it is a real hurdle and you have to do something today that drives action, what is it? Start there. And this ties into what Stephanie was telling me at the event, right? Speak and write. You don't need the stage to practice being a speaker. You need the voice notes. You need an Instagram story. You need a room of 5 people. You don't need the book deal to be a writer. You need the Substack. You need the Notes app. You need a really good caption on Instagram. Whatever version of her is available to you today in whatever size, no matter how big or small, in whatever room, you show up as her in that moment. Because why? Chips make chunks. And the woman who gets the big opportunities is almost always the woman who was already doing the thing quietly and believing the thing quietly and embodying the thing quietly, long before anyone gave a fuck and long before anyone was watching. I'm telling you guys, I'm saying this for myself as a reminder, but it's also been true in my life as well. So trust me on this. And then finally, watch what you say after the I'm just. Like, I'm just a freelancer. I'm just figuring it out. I'm just someone who likes to write. I've also been guilty of this as well. The word just is just, for lack of a better term, it's damaging. It is an instant minimizer. Whatever you're saying with that immediately gets smaller. It's self-depreciation before anyone can chime in, before you can even truly give yourself an introduction. Notice where it comes up and do your best to curb it. So finally, guys, I just want to leave you with this. Like, the woman that you are waiting to become, the woman that you see for yourself, the woman that's in your brain, that's in your soul, that's in your vibe, the one that you visualize, she doesn't actually have a crazy, wild, different life to yours inside. She doesn't have a different past or a different starting point because she is you and you are her. She's just made a few different decisions. And the most important one is she has stopped waiting for external permission and has started living from the inside out. That is the biggest hurdle between you and her. She stopped asking to be called a writer and she just wrote. She stopped wanting to date a certain type of man and just started saying no to the ones that weren't that. She stopped waiting to feel like a speaker and just spoke. She stopped minimizing her accomplishments and just let it roll off her tongue. That woman is not a future version of you that you are trying to run into and catch up with. She is a decision that you can make today, in the middle of your mess, in the middle of your brokenness, in the middle of your life, in your non-aesthetic apartment, in your small home, in your shitty car, whatever, with the life that you actually have right now. You do not have to wait. You are already her, as long as you decide to be. I hope you guys really liked this episode. I definitely did. This is definitely one that I will probably listen to over again because I need this reminder, especially in this year of the horse, year of the fire horse. Let me correct myself. You guys, if you're tapped into Chinese astrology, because we're all Chinese now, this is the year for movement. This is the year to not settle. This is the year to go, 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 and embody that energy. We shedded all the bullshit last year. That's what 2025 was for. Year of the horse is for us to run passionately in the direction that we want to. Get closer to that woman that you already are. Get closer to that wardrobe. Get closer to that promotion. Get closer to that side hustle. Get closer to that money. Get closer to that man. Whatever it is, this is the year to run after it wildly and passionately and unapologetically. And I don't just say that as some girl with a microphone. I say that as a woman who is running alongside with you. So I really hoped you guys liked this episode. And if it resonated with you at all, you know what to do. Share it with a friend or 2 or 3. Tag me on Instagram. I love to know that you guys are listening and loving the topics. And leave a review, obviously, if you haven't already. It genuinely helps more women to find the show and for the Sage sorority to grow and grow and grow. Also, don't forget the link in the show notes for the anonymous question submission. I love your AMAs. Keep sending them in. I would love to give an A to your Q. So make sure to submit those questions. The link is always in the show notes for you guys. Thank you to those who have already bought tickets for the gathering on March 5th. We are almost sold out. I'm like so nervous for it to be sold out because then I'm going to feel bad that no one else can buy. And I'm just so focused on being in that room on March 5th, celebrating a year of Sage Sorority and also just having really good, juicy, deep conversations like we do online every Thursday, but in real life and in person. It's going to be so nice. Of course, I will let you guys know how it goes for those that can't make it. And I think that's all I have. I love you guys so much. I will talk to you next week. Bye.